You're listening to Growing Hope Conversations, the podcast from Growing Hope, a charity offering free therapy for children and young people with additional needs and support for their families. Join our host Bambi French as she welcomes guests who've been there, sharing real stories, honest struggles, and how churches can truly make a difference.
Graham, welcome to the Growing Hope podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks, and it's really lovely to be here with you, Bambi.
Awesome. It's great to see you. Great to have you here, and thank you so much for being part of the podcast today. And I'm sure all of our listeners and everyone will get so much out of what you have to share. So we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. Before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I'm Graham. My official title is Chief Executive, and I don't like using that title because it makes me sound like a businessman. I call myself the Chief Servant at London City Mission. London City Mission is an old organisation, 190 years old this year, and it's a mission agency for London. We reach out to the homeless, but also Muslim people, Hindu people, kids on the council estates. We particularly aim for the people who are unlikely to get into a church without some help.
Amazing. So you're the Chief Servant Officer. Chief Servant Officer?
That is it.
So for the CEOs out there, if you want to change your title to CSO, Chief Servant Officer of London City Mission. Fabulous. Yeah, so as we get in, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about London City Mission and your work there. So you have a diagnosis of ADHD. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey towards that diagnosis? Was that something that came early in your life or later?
So trying to think, I think the first time I even heard of ADHD, I must have been maybe 22, 23. So that's a long time ago because I'm about to turn 53. And when I read about it, I thought, wow, I have some of those traits. And then there was a test you could do, and it wasn't just words. They flashed some lights, and you had to kind of remember what was there. And it came out saying, yes, it's very likely you might have ADHD and you should go and talk to a doctor about it. And I thought, well, I'm not going to talk to a doctor about it because I'm fine. I'd got straight A's at my A levels and a good degree, and I thought I know how to cope with this. And I thought it was almost a joke. And I didn't think about it again until I'd been thinking my son Harry had it. In fact, one of the teachers had said, "Oh, I think you should get your son tested." That was when he was about 10, and we never did get him tested because we spoke to his other teachers. Said, don't worry about these things. Kids get distracted, and Harry's a bit like that. I don't think he needs a diagnosis. Don't put a label on everything. But then there was a tragedy in our family, and Harry died. He'd been on some medicine that's now been found out to have horrible side effects, and he died. And it just took such a blow out of me. I felt traumatized, and whereas before I'd been really good at covering up my ADHD, I was masking at work. I just found I didn't have the energy to do that anymore, and I got myself a diagnosis. So that must have been, I got diagnosed about 7 years ago. Yeah, I was probably about 46 when I got diagnosed, and it felt embarrassing because I went into my HR team and said, by the way, I've got ADHD, and people were like, oh, I mean, I thought that was naughty boy syndrome. I'm like, well, there you go. Here's the consultant's letter to say I've got it, and
That's really interesting. Your story. I mean, thank you so much for being so open. And I think I'm sure everyone feels the pain that you felt when losing your son.
Mhm.
You were diagnosed at the age of 46, and there's lots and lots of adults at the moment, especially it feels like. I don't know whether just because we know more and we have more information, but lots of adults at the age of around 40 plus are being diagnosed with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, lots of different neurodivergences. You said that you felt embarrassed about receiving the diagnosis and then having to go and tell your work colleagues.
Yeah,
Can you just kind of explain why? Why did you
why
feel?
that was. Well, it's funny because uh, I'll mention this later. I've got two other kids, and when they got their diagnosis, I was actually really positive to them about this is great. Think of all these famous people who have had this and it hasn't held them back. But when I got my diagnosis, I guess I hadn't read up that much about it, and I was seeing it as a disability as opposed to a different ability, and so it was this feeling like, wow, I am, my son's died, and I am now forever somewhat broken, and that just felt, mortifying, really.
Were you in leadership when you got your diagnosis, when you received your diagnosis?
Yeah, I was already the chief servant of London City Mission. I'd already led the mission through something like 5 years of change and new direction. So I guess that was also part of the reason why it felt a bit humiliating for me, because I mean, this is wrong, but my feeling was, oh well, I'm the chief executive. I should be Superman. I need everyone to have trust in me. Is this going to all go wrong now? Are people going to think I'm weak and disabled?
Could you see, once you received the diagnosis, could you see the impact that your ADHD had had in your work previously?
So this is the thing. Um, I did one of these tests, and it said, "Oh, Graham, the way you lead is through inspirational motivation." I thought, "Oh, well, that sounds good," and that was basically the way I would lead, and I still do. I get people excited. I'll often start with a Bible passage and say, "Look, this is what God's calling us to do, and maybe it's difficult, but this is." And I actually find my ADHD energizes me for some of that. It allows me to speak with passion, and I get enthused about what I'm doing. I'll hyper focus on what's going on, but of course afterwards I'll often feel somewhat exhausted. And what I found, you know, between the ADHD and the trauma, suddenly I found I was procrastinating a lot more. Um, so I'd always had an issue that I would get enthusiastic and lost in the conversation, and then I'd overrun by 10 minutes, and the person coming next would either smile and laugh, or they'd frown and say, "Oh, my time is important as well, Graham." And I think, okay, okay. But so that was always been a problem. I could see that, but suddenly I also had issues around kind of procrastination and having a long task list and thinking, this is more exciting, I'll get on with this. And that felt like a new symptom, really, or at least I'd been able to overcome it before by, I don't know, just working really hard to kind of focus and get on with things.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure there's lots of people who'll be listening who have ADHD and can resonate with what it is you're saying around, the procrastination, and but also seeing the positive about how you're able to inspire and motivate people, but then be completely exhausted at the end of it because you've used all of your energy to do that. there's lots of conversation, I think, within faith circles, where people who are diagnosed with as having a disability then they can struggle then with their faith. Did your diagnosis have an impact on your faith at that point?
Not significantly, but it added to this. It did add to a feeling, Lord, what on earth are you doing here? You've let my son die. I'm feeling rubbish, and now I've got this diagnosis that I'm disabled, and I think I accepted a lie about myself. To be honest, I started thinking, well, I'm broken, and so I felt that, and I also, to be frank, I felt like, and Lord, you've broken me, or at least you've allowed it, and so that, coming to terms with that, but it was wider than just the ADHD, but that was part of it. I went through a patch where I was really wrestling with God. It felt more like Job. If you read the book of Job, he never loses faith in God. He's just like, Lord, what have you done? This is painful, and why is this happening? And I guess I felt some of that. Again, I didn't have anyone around who... I didn't know people who had ADHD or had a positive experience of it. I'm sure they must have been about, but I just didn't know anyone. And in fact, I guess some of the Christians I knew were a bit dismissive, saying, "Oh, I just think there's too much of that around now." I mean, we all we all suffer from like losing things and turning up late for meetings sometimes. And I find I just have to be more disciplined. And you think, oh right, you don't understand what's going on with me. But that I've found, maybe it's across the whole of the community, but I found quite a lot of Christians weren't very supportive, and had read things in the paper saying ADHD is not real, there's too many people diagnosed with it. And because I've been the chief executive, that made people think, I mean, that's a pure example. Look at Graham. He can't possibly have it. He's a chief executive. So that, overall the experience of diagnosis didn't feel like a positive thing at all for me.
Yeah, but I mean, that is something that we're still dealing with, today. Like you say, even within Christian circles and faith circles, where that's a place where people would assume or expect there to be that understanding around the additional needs that someone will have. But actually, there's still a disconnect, isn't there? There's still that misconception. It's absolutely getting better.
I think it is.
And the education within churches, through the work that Growing Hope does and other organisations do around raising the awareness of people with additional needs within the church. It's getting better, but we've got a long way to go, haven't we, in terms of people understanding that these needs exist.
Yeah, I think Christians should be the best at this because Jesus specifically taught us, through his own example, to reach out to the people on the margins. He speaks to the Samaritan woman. He goes out, and lots of his healings are with the lepers, and he calls Zacchaeus, who's a tax collector, and so that thing of people who might be struggling, that should be part of our DNA. And of course, I'm biased because at LCM, that's specifically what we want to do: help churches to reach people who might not normally get into a church and feel it outside of it. So I feel like we should be good, and maybe that's why I felt more disappointed that people didn't get it. And I at some point, we'll come on to the story of my kids, but again, I didn't feel that they were welcomed with neurodiversity as well, and just that it feels wrong. This should be the safe place. It should be the best place. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, coming on to then your work with LCM, with London City Mission, and you say that you work with people who are on the margins, and I think when we say people on the margins, maybe the first thought might be the homeless or those groups of people who you immediately think, okay, refugees, those kinds of groups of people. Let's talk a little bit more about those families that have children with additional needs.
Exactly.
People might not necessarily think straight away, this family that looked like they've got it all together kind of thing, the parents work, the children go to schools, whatever, they live in a house on a nice street with trees, all of those sorts of things, but actually those families are on the margins too.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your work that you do with LCM and how you maybe support those families?
So, well, that's the thing. If you want to know more about LCM, just look us up, lcm.org.uk. It's not a hard thing to find, but and lots of people will have heard of us. But the word mission, I think it's an American thing. But in America, missions are or city missions are often just homeless centres. Our wording is for the people least reached by the church, the people who churches aren't very good at, and actually particularly people with neurodiverse kids. I think we are some of the least reached people. I join in on the forums, talking with other SEN parents, and I'll chat to other people who are Christians. You think, oh, that's great. Which church do you go to? People say, oh, well, I used to go to such a church, but for the last few years, I just haven't been able to go. I was finding I wasn't able to get there every week, and in the end, just the judgment and the difficulty, I didn't have the energy to keep doing it, and to begin with, some of those people carry on listening to talks and things, but actually I've seen people just saying I can't really say I've got a faith anymore, and how can we let that happen? If you see someone struggling, why are we not going out and reaching out to them? And yet, so we have this misunderstanding, and I've been through it. You think I'm the head of a Christian organisation that works with churches all over the place. It must be easy for me. No, I've been there. We've really worked hard to get our daughter into church. My daughter's got a type of autism called PDA. I'm pretty sure she's got my ADHD as well, and she finds feeding difficult. She's got a thing called ARFID. And we managed to get her into church. Maybe we're half an hour late, and then my wife Alison's had someone saying, "Oh, good afternoon," and it just being a bit cheeky. She's turned up. It was meant to be 11 o'clock service, and she's turned up at 11:30, and the person at the door is just like, "Oh, look how late you are." And then Annabelle's sitting at the back because she can't cope with going into the Sunday school. So she sits on one of the sofas and she opens up her tablet and is she's watching something with her headphones on. And afterwards, parents will come up to us and say, oh, I found it's not that hard to set some good boundaries on this kind of thing. And they're feeling like, oh, yeah. It's actually, my daughter is feeling completely stressed out by being in the room, but we are delighted we've managed to get her into church. And the way she's dealing with her stress is sitting there on her on her tablet with her headphones on, and that's making it doable for her. But she actually managed to sit through and hear the talk today and enjoyed it. And please, I wish you would just have some understanding of what's happening with her. So I found that difficult. If anyone's listening thinking, oh, but it'll be easy for you. No, I think it just is difficult until you find every now and then there are churches who get it. And it's often because there's someone who's struggled through, and maybe they've got grown-up kids now, but they were kids with neurodiverse, and they've taught people. And I want to be one of those people, really. I want to make it easier for others. So it just fits with my day job. I'm sitting there thinking, we're not very good at getting actually some of the rougher kids into church. We're certainly not very good at reaching out to in central London. You'll normally have people at the school gate who are Muslims or Hindus, and we don't talk to them. And this other group is there are a lot of very isolated families with neurodiversity, where people just don't really know what to do with them. And so often there's a parent at home slogging away who feels completely isolated.
Yeah. There is a whole lot of isolation, isn't there? And even I facilitate the When Dreams Change course that Growing Hope runs. I facilitate the online one. So I'm in the Northeast, so anyone can join that one if they can't get to an in-person one. And that is a theme that comes up time and time again, is the isolation that people feel in a world where we have never been more connected. We're recording this podcast and we're in two separate places in the UK.
Yeah.
We've never ever been more connected, but the isolation is real. That actually people are not seeing, having those meaningful conversations week in, week out that you would have in church, because they don't feel like they could bring their children, or they themselves don't feel like they can come to church, because then they wouldn't be accepted for who they are. So that is definitely something that
it's something our family have struggled with before we had kids. The way we did a lot of our ministry was hospitality, and I would recommend that to people. Hospitality, eating food together, what a wonderful way to share our faith. Now, afterwards, Annabelle's got an eating disorder, and she gets very, very stressed if she's eating with other people in the room, and so we can't have food at the same time. But also, she's got extreme anxiety, and she wants her mum to be in the room. So, if Annabelle needs a safe person. Now, if someone is willing to make the effort, eventually Annabelle would accept a person. But that would be a real slog for someone to come along. First of all, just say hello to Annabelle, then get to know them, and finally, that is such a rarity. It's such a rarity, and so because of that, Annabelle will get stressed when other people come into the room, and will find that hard, and she won't want Alison, my wife, to go to a Bible study with other mums unless she can be there too, and then she'll get bored after 20 minutes. And some of that stuff is just hard. For a long time, Annabelle wasn't going to school. Now she will go in maybe 4 afternoons a week, and if Alison could get to a Bible study in those afternoons, but none of the churches near here have something then, and I tear my hair out and say, Alison hasn't been to church much and really needs someone to meet up with her. Could someone just create a study group by going around to the house? And that kind of frustration. And I'm not blaming people, because that actually, particularly the church I'm in now, New Malden Baptist, it's just phenomenally friendly. But I think also I think people don't realise what's going on in a family some of the time and wouldn't know how to help.
Yeah.
If they heard that my wife Alison was lonely, they'd think, oh, she can come round to our house anytime. Why, hey,
Yeah.
Alison, come round for lunch tomorrow. And that's, so that's, I think this is why your podcast, Bambi, is so helpple to just get the
Growing
word
Hope
out.
podcast. Yeah, I'm just here as the host. It's the Growing Hope podcast. It's not mine. just so we're clear.
Praise the Lord for
The
that.
Growing Hope podcast. That's what it is.
Yes.
But yes, it's definitely the conversations that I'm privileged to be having with so many people on the podcast are definitely ones that I believe will encourage lots of people, parents, adults,
Yeah.
children who are experiencing some of the things that you've spoken about today. But it's about the continuous education that we're trying to
Yes.
let people know. There's somebody who will come across this podcast or it will be shared with them and they'll say, I just didn't know that. I didn't understand that about ADHD. I didn't
I hope.
understand that a 46-year-old man could actually be diagnosed with ADHD and
Yeah.
still be the CEO/CSO of of a major
Well,
organization.
yeah, well, of course, people like, I think Richard Branson's come out and said, oh, yes,
Yeah.
I've got ADHD. And you kind of see his personality, and I'm thinking, yeah, I think so. And actually, in terms of autism, because both my kids now have diagnosis of autism, and you hear these terrible things. There's some politician in the States saying, oh, these people are such a burden on
Yeah.
us. And I'm thinking, you just need some more education because, he's saying, oh, they don't pay any taxes. And I'm thinking, well, Bill Gates pays his tax and so does Mark Zuckerberg. And well, maybe they don't. Maybe they've got lawyers to help them not pay it. But, these people aren't a drain on society. And it's just educating people. And if I just say at work, it's felt like a privilege because whereas first of all, there was the reaction like, you can't possibly have ADHD. Actually, by being open about it, I guess being open that there was a certain amount of pain involved in that and some misunderstanding, but we've now had a kind of neurodiversity course to help line managers understand what's going on with people in the workforce. We have, I think, people doing mission work. There's quite a lot of us who are neurodiverse, and teaching people that the person who's not very good at admin can still be a really brilliant worker, and that's often what I've found. They're going out and they can communicate so well, and actually if you put someone in a team, you can have a group of 2 or 3 people. One's brilliant at admin, one's really good at kind of speaking with power, and another one might be good at pastoral work, and between them it's a fantastic combination. But when you treat everyone like they have to be the same, I think it can go wrong because people like me, we don't fit into some of the boxes that society has made.
Absolutely. There are so many things that you have said that we could expand on for minutes, hours, days. Lots and lots of conversations to be had. So I'm sure you'll be coming back to talk to us at Growing Hope at some point.
I would love to.
But to kind of end this particular episode, is there anything that you can say to encourage the person, the people listening, any resources you can point to, but really it's around the encouragement about what you have learnt, where you are with your faith now and your ADHD and everything that you're kind of dealing with and going through.
So for people with who maybe the kids have had a diagnosis of ADHD or autism or dyslexia or different neurodiversities, I would want to encourage people that this isn't a disability, it's a different kind of ability, and I wouldn't want to be a different person. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, Graham, I'll pray for you. You'll be healed." I'm like, no, this is who I am, and
That's definitely a podcast episode.
this is who I am, and the fact that I can hyper focus on a subject, the fact that I can effervesce and be passionate about something, it's one of the things I give thanks to God for, and I just want to encourage people. I'm past that feeling like, oh, I'm broken, why did you break me, Lord? No, I'm beautifully made. And if you've got neurodiverse kids, they are beautifully made as well, and they'll be sensitive to what's going on. And if they see their parents like moping, oh my goodness, I've got broken kids. No, you've got kids that are beautifully made. If you're neurodiverse, you are also made in the image of God, and just give thanks for that. We have some gifts that other people don't, and there's some stuff like turning up on time that we struggle with. But that's not the biggest thing. It is in our society.
Yeah,
Jesus turned up late. He turned up late to Lazarus' death, and he did it. Yeah, praise the Lord.
Out, didn't it? He turned up late, but it worked out.
It worked out. That's the thing. What was important is he'd stopped on the way to help someone,
Yes.
and I do that. I'm like, I'm late because there was this person on the street, and I'm like, again, what is the right thing to do? I think to stop and help the person is actually better than the person who's being polite and make sure they're always on time. It's a gift. It's a gift having this, but it doesn't fit with all the social rules.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It is. It's more than okay. You are God's masterpiece, made in His image. Nice way to end. Well, thank you so much, Graham, for being part of the podcast today. We will link to the London City Mission in the show notes so that everyone can make it super easy for everybody to find the website and find out a little bit more about what you do and maybe how they can get involved in the work that you do as well.
Exactly. I would love people to think who've got that kind of heart of compassion to get involved. Absolutely welcome to the family.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Graham. It was great to talk to you.
Nice to speak to you. It's been an honour. Thank you.
Everyone should be able to access their church. In this podcast, you've heard how this isn't always easy for some people. Growing Hope's accessibility training helps churches become welcoming places for every child and family. We'll train your whole church community, not just to give your building wider doors and access ramps, but to help you change your culture so that every child and young person is welcome. Book your training today at growinghope.org.uk/churches.